That's a big fish. I need you. I really need you. Come here. You are big. You are big, big, big. Just wish you guys could see this fight. That's a big, big fish. Big fish. Big, 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 big. No, I will never get tired of hearing that intro. Never, 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 never. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Everything Kayak Fishing, hosted by the Fishing with GRAMPS YouTube channel. My name is JT, and as always, represented by American Legacy Fishing Company. Man, if you're not paying attention, always sales going on, always good stuff coming in, new stuff coming in, new trade stuff going up. I always tell everybody to be sure to check out the American Legacy Fishing Elite Club. I think it's like $50 a year, and it entitles you to like free shipping, discounts, stack on sales, just so much, so much to even keep up with. But man, yeah, it's just a great membership benefit. Also presented by Fish Texas Kayak Trailers. You guys have seen I'm on my third Fish Texas kayak trailer now. Of course, now I'm rolling around with the new double T-Max Fishing with GRAMPS edition. And yeah, if you're interested in checking it out, catch me at any events. Even though this year my events are kind of down a little bit, but the next one is going to be one of the topics coming up this next month at the Kayak Adventure Series in St. Cloud, Minnesota. And I'm going to be joined by a special guest who happens to live and reside up in that neck of the woods. But he's also a father who brings his sons out to the Kayak Adventure Series. And he's a hammer in his own right. But, man, his boys, they've been kicking everybody's butts. I think Ollie, the youngest, has taken home big bass or tied for big bass in the last couple events. Yeah, it's going to be insane. It's going to be insane. It's going to be insane. But yeah, we're going to get into that. He's actually taking care of his sons are going out fishing with family members. So he's taking care of that right now. And then he's going to join us a little bit. And we're going to do a little preview talk of the Kayak Adventure Series coming up next month up in St. Cloud, Minnesota. And then I'm also going to have coming up soon Eric Schreibner, who won the Kayak Adventure Series up in Wisconsin last year. And I actually met Elvis and his son, as well as Eric and a few others at the boat ramp where like all the monster fish were caught in Wisconsin last year. So yeah, we're really fortunate to meet a bunch of these guys, but Elvis and his sons travel around, and I missed them in Ohio because I had to get back home. But they came over and did really well. Of course, they fished the rivers. I fished the lake, and they went down to Caddo, smashed them, saw them down there. And just good folks. So we're going to have them on tonight to do a little preview talk about Minnesota coming up next month. I believe July 11 and 12 or 12 and 13. It's that Friday and Saturday. I'm going to go up a few days early because old Gramps has been off the water and it's driving me nuts. I said I was going to be gone from YouTube, but I can't sit here and just study and pour through these videos and these books and these practice exams. I'm doing that every night after work from the time I get home to the time I go to bed, between mowing and doing my chores. And then this weekend, I spent all weekend studying and doing yard cleanup from the second round of winds that just came through and dropped trees all over my yard again. But fortunately, this time didn't do any damage to the house or trucks or whatever. It re-smashed a shed that had previously been smashed, but it made sure. It's like, you know how somebody dents an aluminum can. It's like, man, I can't use that one again. Not that you reuse your aluminum cans, but no, didn't just have one tree falling. I had another branch that's the size of a tree break off and completely crush the shed. So now it looks like a squashed can. But yeah, I've been dragging trees around the yard all weekend, trying to get them separated so that I can slowly process those trees and haul them off to the dump. I'm not going to spend $2,000-$3,000 to pay somebody to come out and cut it all up when I can just, cut it up a little bit at a time and haul stuff off one truckload at a time. But yeah, enough of all that. Let's get back to talk about kayak fishing because that's the topic of the show. Coming up this week, And I told myself while I was doing my studies for this certification at work that I'd give myself like, a couple Fridays a month, just to take the brain break and do all of that too. So, I actually have a tournament coming up this upcoming Friday out at Boggs. It's the series that Jeremy and I fished, the GRBY. We're both in the top. I think we're in the top 5 in the AOI standings. So, hey, we've caught limits. It's been tough fishing. Fishing's really tough right now because these fish, again, there's still fish on beds. It's freaking almost July, and there are still fish on beds up here in Indiana. Insane. They've been spawned. It's like 1 or 2 will spawn a week. And yeah, it's been craziness. But that's just how it goes sometimes. But looking forward to that. I gotta fish that tournament and then immediately break all my stuff down and convert from chasing largemouth bass to smallmouth bass. So I'll be relining, pulling braid off of my spinning reels and gearing them up with smaller 10-pound test braid with 8-pound leaders for fishing for these giant smallies up there, just to be a little more finessey. But looking forward to that. I'll probably take like 4 spinning rods and a bait caster, keep it simple on the river. But yeah, can't wait to get up to St. Cloud, Minnesota. This one is hosted by Achigan, the brand of smallmouth bass. And I'm hoping to try to get our good friend Josh Shrenko from Achigan brand to come on between now and the event. We've got a few weeks before we go up. I'm going to try to get Shrenko on. I'm going to probably try to get Drew on to come talk about it. Of course, he'll be going live on his side, talking about it and all the excitement about it. And again, I'm going to have Elvis on tonight to talk about the place where it's at. And then I'm going to also have Eric Shrivner, who's from Minnesota as well, to come on and talk about it too. So yeah, it's funny. Somebody said weather's been crazy. Yeah, we've had 5 months of spring ish with rains, wind, rains. It stops raining after all these trees come down in my yard, and then it's been 95 ever since. So yeah, summer solstice welcomes, because yeah, here's your 95 and hot and humid. It's like but yeah, Trevor says thinks Debo wants to go live youth as well to discuss the trip. Yeah, he can hit me up anytime. I'll make sure I message him, know that, yeah, I'm taking a break from making YouTube videos, but I'm not filming anything new. I'm recording if I go fish, obviously, but I'm not putting any time to editing like, videos that take long to edit. I've got like some review stuff and things like that. You saw my frog rod fishing video come out where I, threw together some stuff, but I recorded that like a month ago, or longer. So I've got stuff sitting on the table. But yeah, speaking of the heat, Jeremy went out and fished a boat tournament today. Now I know if you're listening to the Everything Kayak Fishing the Everything Kayak Fishing podcast, I don't hear nothing about no dang boats, just kayak fishing things. Yeah, he's a kayak guy. He jumped in a boat and fished with a buddy. They caught a limit and had some fun. Poor dude, Jeremy twisted his ankle getting out of his kayak last week. Storm rolled in and basically pushed him back up on the banks. While he was in a hurry trying to get off, he stepped off the side of the ramp and rolled his ankle and blew it up. I mean, just he didn't break it, but boy, he put an egg on his foot. So he ended up forgetting to tell the dude that he was fishing with today to put a seat in the boat so he can sit and fish, kayak style. And he didn't even think about that. So he was on his feet all day today. But yeah, it was hot. There wasn't a bunch of big limits caught. There were some good fish, but one thing he noticed, he said he and I have to start weighing our fish more often because the fish that we think aren't, big fish, the 19s and even the 20s we catch, he says, the 5-pounders that were being weighed today were in the upper 18s. We know they're healthy out there, but I guess he's thinking that we need to start weighing our bass that are, 19 and a half and up, because he probably thinks some of these fish I've caught, and even he's caught, my biggest fish in Indiana is like 6, 8, 7. He thinks I probably have caught 6 or 7-pound bass out of bogs without really realizing it. So I've got the Bubba scale and I'm going to start carrying it with me, but we never think about it. We always associate big bass with 22s, 23s, so we never even thought about putting a scale on them. But, he actually helped with the boat weigh in today and was like, bro, He said, "You've probably caught a fish bigger than your biggest weight and just didn't realize it because we kayak fish and just go by the measuring board." But we never think about it. We're like, okay, if it's over 22, we'll throw it on scale, or 23, we know is going to be a big one. But I guess he's talking about some of the fish we've been catching are pretty healthy and heavier than they thought we were too. So, but yeah, he was like, the bite's stingy again. And we'll see what our tournament looks like next weekend. It could be a struggle bus because you're going to have Thursday and Friday of 95-degree and just bleh. And then you're going to have 3 days more of more thunderstorms. So I don't know that we're ever going to see our water levels come down. We just want to stop rain for a while, A, so we can stop mowing so damn much, and B, so we can let the rivers get down so we can put our kayaks in some of the places we want to river fish and chase some smallies down here. But shoot, it maybe August or September before we get to that point too. So, who knows? It's just one of those things. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this Minnesota trip. I've actually planned my studies and my course around this trip so that I get like 3 or 4 weeks of studying all the material, rewatching videos. Because I got like 3 separate sets of videos from the boot camp that I was in. Plus, there's a bunch of stuff on YouTube, and it's just a lot of time when you're absorbing a lot of material. A lot of this stuff is stuff I know. There's 8 chapters to study, but it's a lot of stuff I know. But for the stuff that I don't know, it's just re-listening to it, rewatching it, rereading it over and over and over again. Then I'm going to go to Minnesota, not think about it at all for several days, and then after I come back, I will schedule my tests for 2 weeks out, and then do my practice questions over and over and over again until I'm ready. But enough of me talking about all that stuff. Let's talk about fishing stuff, and let's bring Mr. Elvis Lee in here. And yeah, Elvis, how you doing, bud?
Good man. Sorry, I'm a little late. I had to help my brother do something quick. So
It's all good, dude. We just, we sitting here shooting the stuff, talking about the event a little bit, and talking a little bit about Kayak Adventure Series. So, start out by introducing yourself. I mean, I know I've met you, and those of us who fish Kayak Adventure Series quite a bit have run into you and your your deadly
yeah,
sons
yeah,
all over
yeah.
the country. But tell us a little bit how you got into kayak fishing, and then how you got your boys into it, and then even into the Kayak Adventure Series as well. Tell us your background a little
Okay.
bit, and fill
Yeah.
everybody in.
So I'm Elvis. I am from Minnesota. Um, I got into kayak fishing. Well, I originally, I
Oh, I'm not sure if it's my feed that froze up or yours. Hopefully, my internet didn't just die again. Honey, can you look at the modem?
I don't know if can you.
Yeah, you're breaking up on me. I don't think your connection's really good right now. They saying it's Elvis. Okay. I guess you lost signal there, but I
Okay.
see you moving again, so that's good.
Okay. Yeah. 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 Anyway, so I got into float tube fishing with my 2 older kids, which is Tristan and Lila. And Oliver didn't come along until Oliver didn't really float tube fish with us. At that time he was only 3 years old when we first started doing that. So he got on to the float tube with me probably twice, and it wasn't really his thing. He didn't really enjoy it as much as my 2 older kids. And so I actually started my first tournament in 2019, right before COVID actually hit, like the
Yeah,
summer of 2019. And then, well, initially I, was doing a lot of pan fishing with my kids, because that's the easiest way to get kids into, right? Pan fish,
100%.
they,
Yep.
because it keeps them occupied. So, anyways, I kind of wanted to, try this, bass fishing thing, and I didn't really. I mean, I've always bass fished like occasionally growing up, but it wasn't something that I truly enjoyed. So, but then again, I'm a competitive person, so I was like, well, let's try to see if we can get into some tournaments. So, one of the local, one of the local club here in Minnesota, they were doing kayak tournaments. So I asked the tournament see what this bass fishing tournament thing is all about. And he was like, "Yeah, fine, come on out. The more the merrier." So my son didn't actually fish this one. I just went by myself, and there was like, I want to say there was like 18 or 19 of us, and been fishing like they've never been on. I fished, out of the float tube, going there, showing up. It was kind of funny because everyone was like, "Man, who is this guy in a float tube? Like, what is a float tube?" No one knew what it was, So,
Yeah.
and then I came out there, and then I ended up second, in that tournament, and I was like, "Oh, okay, maybe I can." In the fall, I end up second again. I actually lost that one due to tiebreaker. I was a little disappointed, but I was like, you know what, it is what it is. And then after that, COVID hit, and then everyone had a lot of time, so I did fish quite a bit in 2020.
Yeah.
At that time, I was self-employed, so I just had to make sure I get all my stuff done and go do what I need to do. And then that whole year of 2020, a friend of mine, we put some local tournaments together. We call these pickup tournaments, but they were just really low entry fee tournament to get guys involved in tournament fishing. It's strictly just kayak. I was the only person on the float tube, and then my son Tristan actually did fish one of these tournament with me, and he ended up in eighth overall. And
Oh, okay. Wow.
I think we had like 25 guys or so, if I remember right. So, but Tristan, it wasn't really his thing, So he was just fishing with me here, here and there, on and off, and then at the end of that, I believe it was the Bassmaster Chickamauga event, if I remember right. It was 2020. That was when they were still doing single day, and then a couple of guys from here, a good friend of mine, he went down and they fished Chickamauga. He didn't do too well, and I gave him a little crap about it, but I got humble too. So
Yeah. Yeah.
we'll leave that for another day. But anyway, so that kind of sparked my interest of wanting to fish and travel and get. I didn't really, wanted to fish out of a kayak because I was so used to fishing out of a float tube. And my buddy that fished Chickamauga, and he was always telling people that, oh yeah, Elvis, you fish out of float tube. He's got the human spot lock because essentially that's what it was. I can just
Oh,
sit in
yeah.
one spot, even if it's windy. I stay in one spot, kick my legs, and just stay in one spot and just fish it and break down area. So the whole thing with the float tube fishing, it's like kayak fishing, but at a way slower pace because you can't cover water as fast. The fastest, if you're gonna go, it's like maybe a mile and a half, 1.5 miles per hour. That's about as
Yeah.
fast as you can go, unless you motorize it. I didn't want to motorize it at the time, so and then after that Chickamauga event they went to, and I was like, I kind of want to do that. Like that sounds really fun. So 2021 came around, I ended up picking up a kayak, and then that's when it really started for me. I end up being the Slay Nation kayak tournament director for Minnesota, and you want to fish, you want to perform, but you also have to worry about your guys that's out on the water.
Yeah.
So at the same time, it was just too much for me to handle. So I handed it off to another guy who took over the following year. So, but the first year I end up, I fished my first Hobie in lacrosse, and I I love lacrosse, but the first day of the Hobie event, you know, I was stupid. I did, I should have measured fish that I knew that were measurable. I just like, put on the board, 12, 13. I was like, I'm going to toss it. There's going to be bigger fish. And I ended up not getting limit on day one because
Yeah.
I was just tossing, these things away. And if anyone that's ever fished lacrosse know that, you know, depending on the time of the year, those days can come and play. So day two, I end up doing really good on day two, and caught a lot of fish. And then I was very disappointed myself. So bass came back to lacrosse that following fall, and I end up was the last person to qualify for the championship in 2022. So I end up, this is so for the 2022 Bassmaster Kite Championship that was held on Lake Russell, and that was the first time I ever actually fished outside of our region. And I kid you not, as a grown man, I almost cried after day one because of how hard it was. I
Yeah.
did not know what to like. I'm There's absolutely no grass. I don't know what to do. I'm clueless because there's no grass and everything is like super deep. And that's the first time I actually caught a bass in 50 feet of water. So that was a very humbling experience, very expensive. And at that point, I was like, okay, I really want to do this more. It's very fun. It's just challenge. I mean, we're out there. We obviously we want to be the best most part. So
Oh yeah.
I got humbled pretty early on, and so Oliver didn't really come into this whole thing until basically, well, he started fishing with me on the kayak. I got him a little 6 foot kayak about about almost 4 years ago. And so he started fishing with me on the kayak when well, actually, before I got him a kayak, he was actually sitting in front of my kayak while we were just, motoring around
Yeah.
and catching bluegills and crappie. He was never a bass guy. He never wanted to catch a bass. Crappie was like his favorite fish, and he loves eating crappie. So we always go
Hey.
out and catch crappie. So, um, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna give him a kayak. I don't know, because at that time he was only like 9 years old, so he was a little, he's small. So it's like, okay, well, I can't get him a full size kayak, so let me get him a little 6 footer. So he fits in there perfectly. He was on that for about a year. He actually got on the river with me in that little kayak
Oh
you
wow.
know. So, and I just like, what? I told him, I was like, I'm just gonna have to trust you that you're not gonna flip on the river. So he did pretty good. He never flipped. It wasn't until a few years ago when he actually flipped in his kayak during the fall, and the water's kind of cold. He flipped, and he was scared. He didn't want to do it again. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay, now it's time. At that time he's already 10. So I was like, all right, let's get him a full size kayak, so that way it's stable, it's safe for him. He doesn't have to worry about flipping or anything. So I ended up getting him another kayak exactly like mine, and then he fished with me out of that kayak for getting him a same kayak as well. And then I my kayak motorized. So the first year that I competed, I didn't have any motor, right? So um, I was all about all human power, paddle only. And then I realized going to the championship in South Carolina, I realized, okay, I need a motor because there's no way
Yeah.
I'm going to be out here in this wind. And, it's just not efficient. So I ended up motorizing the kayak. And then, Oliver and Tristan, that were kind of, it wasn't their thing. They didn't want to motorize. They want to keep it, basic, simple, just
Yeah.
paddle around because they love river fishing. So, and most of the time when we're on the river, we don't even bring the motor. We just do a float, and then that's it.
Yep.
So it wasn't until last year for the Wisconsin River event where we met you. That's the first time Oliver was actually out riding his motor. We got it done just in time for that, and then he enjoyed it, and he's like, okay, he's not going back to paddling. He's like, hands free fishing is so much better.
Oh yeah.
So and Tristan was kind of hesitant at first. He didn't want to do it. So I took him out after we came back from Wisconsin River. I took Tristan out on Oliver's kayak, and I was like, "Yeah, just try it and see if you like it. If you do, we'll motorize your kayak as well." So he took it, and then he realized, "Oh man, this is so much better than paddling and try to fish at the same time." So So I ended up motorizing his kayak as well, and then so now they're doing their thing, and Oliver. So he fished with me for about 2 years before he actually was ready to compete. I mean, we couldn't really the reason why we decided to fish the Kayak Adventure Series was because there was initially there was the youth division, right? So,
Yep.
and I had asked Drew, I was like, hey Drew, is it okay if my son fished the Kayak Adventure Series in the youth division? But he's not 12 yet, he's only 11. And Drew said, you know what, we can make it work, so that's how he ended up fishing the Kayak Adventure Series. And he did pretty well for his first time
Oh
fishing
yeah.
tournaments. So he was very proud. I kind of look at the standing, and I told him, I was like, I don't want to, I don't want to make you feel bad or anything, but I think you might have been the only, youth in that division, at that tournament. You earned this. Like, I don't want you. I don't believe in participation trophy. Right? I tell my
Yeah.
and reward yourself. You got to be able to do it and earn it, not just get a handout because of whatever the situation is. So, and then he was a little. I won't say he was sad or down, but he was just like, it's okay. At least I beat some of these
Oh yeah.
adults. So he was happy. Yeah, the Texas. I don't know if you went to that one or not this year, early this year, the first or the second one in Texas. Did you go to that one?
Yeah, I was at Cato.
Okay, okay, okay. Yeah, so we did not. We were supposed to go, and then Tristan, there's something with his schoolwork, and he couldn't go. So he couldn't miss school, so I had to cancel on that event. And but I know how much you want to fish Texas, so and I want to, experience this with you. But if you can't go, then I'm just gonna, don't worry about it. We'll go to Texas some other time. So we ended up not coming to Texas, and then he didn't want to go to Virginia, but Oliver wanted to compete, so we made the tour. Get a pre-fit, made it to have some fun and see what was going on. So we end up, doing pretty well there.
Yep.
Oliver, obviously, everyone knows that Oliver actually tied for Big Bass for
Yeah.
that event, but he lost the tiebreaker. So he was, but I told him, don't worry about it. We when he first put the fish on the board, it actually flopped. So I was like, oh, okay, don't worry.
I think we're losing connection again. Must have a weak signal. Yeah, I think he's frozen up on us. But for those of you who didn't catch the gist of what he was saying, when they went to South Carolina, Ollie he tied for Big Bass, and it was a monster. It was a 20 plus, and then he lost the tiebreaker for Big Bass because the other guy had his second bass was just a skosh bigger. But yeah, it was a really cool event.
And
Yeah,
he actually beat Steve Baker's son, Wally. Bakers.
Yeah, we lost him.
All right, can you?
There we go. Yeah, you're breaking up on us really bad. It's like your cell signal's coming and going.
Okay, yeah, it might have been. I'm not sure if I can get. I don't think it's anywhere in the house I can get to that will be any better where I'm at. So
Gotcha.
I guess
I
we'll
was
try.
kind of filling him in on the story of him catching the big bass and then lost the tiebreaker. But yeah, it was a pretty cool event. So since I don't want to keep you on too long with your signal fanning, but tell us a little bit about the event coming up for the Kayak Series in Minnesota, and kind of tell everybody what you think they could have in store for them when they come up and visit the wonders of the St. Cloud, Mississippi headwaters kind of area, because I know I'm super excited about coming up.
Yeah, so this is it's a very good fishery. I think it could be one on any boat ramp you put in. There's just so many fish. You know, you can throw anything at them and you'll catch them. Me and Tristan and I and Eric Scribner were actually on the river this morning, just kind of checking it out, see what the water looks like, and it's gone down and it's going to continue to be coming down. So I think in a few weeks it might be pretty low. So you probably be dragging your kayak in certain areas. There's a lot of your 17 to 18-inch fish. There's a lot of those around.
Oh
So
wow, okay, great.
I think it's going to take, with the format, it's probably going to take at least 100 inches to win. I'm predicting there's going to be a lot of guys in like the high 80s, low 90 inches. And it's those 19s and 20s that are gonna that you're gonna need to look and find.
Yeah,
18s, you might keep a few 18s in your bag, but realistically, you're gonna need at least 19s or bigger to actually do very well. Because the local tournament here, it typically takes 94 to 96, 97 inches to win, and that's just a one
yeah,
day. So as for the cast format, you're definitely going to need if not 100 inches, then close to it to win. So like I said, you can put in any boat ramp and pretty much catch fish anywhere. I mean, they're everywhere. um, so I mean, there's so much water in play that I haven't actually fished. We usually
yeah,
typically don't fish outside of St. Cloud for the local tournaments. It's either from St. Cloud all the way down to pretty much the Twin Cities. So, and I know them, but I haven't fished. I'm just gonna kind of stick to what I know, what that has been working for me, which is the Mississippi. So
yeah.
that population of fish. So I would definitely, I mean, like I said, if you are coming to here and you didn't get time to practice, I would suggest just, stay on the Mississippi, put in any bow ramp, and then just go have fun. Use day one to figure out where you're catching your fish, because it's the river. They will reload. They will reload on these river systems. So it's going to be a good time. There's a
Yeah.
lot of big fish. Like I said, you can go and catch them on big baits. I mean, Tristan and I
Yeah,
were
he
just
was
throwing big
he's
baits.
talking about catching my big baits. He sent me this earlier to share with everybody. And he was like, "Oh, you can throw finesse, you can throw all kinds, you can throw big baits." So I was
Yeah,
like, "Well,
yeah.
I haven't caught a big smallie a glide bait before, so I'm definitely bringing my glide rod along with all my other
Yeah,
finesse
they.
stuff as well." So it
Oh
should be a
yeah.
really fun event. And it's funny because for as much fun, and if everybody's followed this channel, saw my video from Wisconsin last year, all of the guys at the boat ramp that we all met at last year were telling me the same thing. Oh, you think this is fun? Wait till you come up north. And
Yeah,
so,
the
as
Mississippi is a
jacked as
little
I was
different
about that
from.
event, I so can't wait to get up to Minnesota and spend a few days on the water even before the event, trying to catch that first 20 that I've been trying to catch. So it'll be fun, just trying to figure it out and going for it and just having a good time. But I encourage anybody, if you haven't been up to Minnesota yet, to chase big smallies. Everybody and their brother that I know that chases big smallies say this is one of the places to be.
Right. I mean, a lot of guys will talk about Mille Lacs, and granted, I've never fished Mille Lacs, but I don't think I ever will, because why drive basically 2 hours away when I can drive an hour away and catch basically just gigantic, river smallmouth, and that's to
Oh
me
yeah,
a lot. The
100%.
river's a lot more fun. I haven't even the last time I fished a lake was back in March. That was just to test out our equipment to make sure that it was going to be good for Virginia. But
Yeah,
ever
okay,
since
good.
we've been fishing, I took all my electronics off. I took a live scope off. I'm fishing with no graph, no live scope, and just a motor, and we just been having a lot of fun just fishing for
Yeah.
river smallmouth. Oh, one thing
Yeah.
I want to mention was the Ohio event. That was a little. I enjoyed it. It was different. I was just super happy that Oliver figured something out on day one.
Yeah.
And he just he didn't no help for me. Didn't ask me what to look for, what to target, what to anything. He just went out, did his own thing, and told me that, hey, Dad, I found a pattern. I was like, okay, cool. What is it? And then he's like, oh yeah, just fish around these flooded grass. They're in there. And I said, okay, cool. So we end up just doing that, and I team up with Colin, the team side, and he was a few miles downriver from us from on day one, and he did pretty good. So I was like, okay, you know what? Let's just roll with it. Let's just float down and see what we can do. And I don't want to. I want to shine a light on Oliver and Tristan. So this is that event was. It's not going to be about me. So I'm not even going to talk about me because I did horrible. I mean, I did catch a check on the team side, but
Oh yeah.
this is where Oliver came in clutch, and he did what he needed to do. He, like the last, I believe it's like the last 3 hours or so of the event, and I told him, I was like, hey, let's make our way back up river and see if we can get on some of these better looking stuff. And in 30 minutes within going up, he called me. He's like, hey, Dad, my motor's dead. I was like, oh, I'm pretty sure it's your battery that it ran out of juice, so it ended up being the battery. And I was like, well, just stay down there with your brother, try to make something happen. I'm gonna try to see if we can help Colin, see if we can do something. And then so Colin, we went up river, and Tristan eventually made it back up without telling me that he left Oliver down there by himself. Oliver stayed near our takeout, and he actually ended up catching another 19 and a quarter. And then the last hour he called me, he was like, hey, is line's all ready? I was like, no, we still got another hour. So it's okay. I was like, just keep grinding. You're doing good. Just don't worry about it. Just keep fishing. And he ended up catching 16 3/4, and that put him at 85 and a quarter and 19th overall, first in the youth division. So I was super happy. He was super
Oh yeah.
happy, and he was one good fish from cutting a check. And I was like, oh man, I was like so happy for him. I was like, my goal for you is to be the first youth to cash a check at this event, if it's possible. So he did tell me that he had a bass hit his bladed jig that was bigger than his 19, but it missed it. And he, every time I tell him, if you see a small, especially river small, I tell him, if you see it hit it and miss it, just drop your bait back down. Typically they'll come back so you can hit it, but that one did not come back. It just took off. So like I said, that fish would have put him up there and possibly catch him a check. But it is what it is. He was very happy. I was
Oh
I was
yeah.
very proud. So
And the fun thing was, especially with that Ohio event, because that event could have went two different ways, because
yeah.
being in the Midwest where you have the river guys chasing smallies and all the lake guys out chasing largemouth, I stayed on the lake, because that's what I know. Me and my partner, we fish more lakes than rivers. I'm still learning rivers,
Mhm.
but the weather because if it would have rained and blown the rivers out, who knows how that would have went. So I was still
You know,
scratching
it's
on the lake that I'd never been to, making sure I had a
Mhm.
limit because we just never knew which way it was going to swing. We saw the one guy catch a 21-inch largemouth and then a 20-inch large, and then he couldn't upgrade. But then the rain held off, and the river guys just dominated
Yeah,
all
it
of
was
the
kind
other
of
big fish. All the
it's
big
crazy
quality
because
fish were all
right,
smallies that came out of the river. That was absolutely
yeah.
incredible.
It was crazy because the day two it rained, and after it rained, the sun came out, and then you could see like the one end of the river. It's like you could see all this mud coming through, and I said, "Holy cow!" Like you can just like literally look across, and you can see which side of the river was all muddy up. And as crazy as it sounds, they were still in that muddy water. As long as that there was any grass, they would because the grass would actually filter some of that stuff out, so it's a
Yeah.
lot cleaner inside the grass. So those smallmouth were setting up inside the grass when the mud was coming through. They were just sitting in there. So it was like, I it was kind of crazy, because I my only ever experience fishing like a mud line was in lacrosse,
Yeah.
and usually when that happened, it could be lights out. You can come into an area where these smallmouth will sit, like just right inside the mud, and just come in and out and snatching food. So it was kind of cool. I enjoyed it. We fished the Great Miami River, and
Yeah.
although it's not nothing like the Mississippi, it's an interesting river. The crazy thing is, I thought going into this event, I was like, hey, you know what? I'm just gonna go flip wood, right? Yeah, nothing but catfish in these wood. So I was like, man, what is going on with this river? So they were just all in the flooded grass, and some of the rocks that you can find, like big chunk rocks. And the most consistent bite for me was fishing around chunk rocks, and then for Oliver it was the grass. And then my son
Yeah.
Tristan, he had a hard time adjusting, because he hasn't really fished with me on the river as much as Oliver has in the last few months. So when I told him, I was like, hey, we're gonna go through this tournament, and we're gonna cover water. So he didn't quite understand what I meant by that. So he was fishing super slow. Like I was just like, oh man, I was like, dude, you can't, like, when I say fish fast, just cover water fast and just power
Yeah.
fish, right? Don't just run water and then throw your little finesse thing, because we're not trying to catch little fish. We're trying to catch the big fish. So
Yep.
it took him a while to kind of understand. And he was throwing a spinner bait, and I was like, spinner bait will work, but the way we're fishing right now, I think you should just tie on a bladed jig and just cover water fast and just kind of, power fish, draw
Yeah.
all those
And
aggressive fish.
that would have suited me well because that's how I love. That's what I did in Wisconsin. I mean, I
Mhm.
put the mini max and a fluke on, and I just went to town. And it
Yeah.
was just every spot where I could find like a little swirl of water
Yeah.
coming back around those big bluff walls. I mean,
Right.
they were just smashing it too, and it's just it was it was so fun.
It's fun.
But
I mean, I think you'll enjoy the Mississippi just as much as the Wisconsin. It's a little different. There's really no, the Wisconsin, at least where we were at, there's a lot of sand drops, and a lot of sand everywhere. But the Mississippi, where we're going to, there isn't a lot of sand, right? There's a lot of
yeah,
rocks, gravel, and then there's some mud here and there. I typically don't fish the mud on the Mississippi up here because I feel like there's not. I mean, most of the time when you find like any stagnant water with mud on this stretch of the river, it's usually just going to hold northern pikes. So
yeah, okay,
the
yeah,
small around, it's all current based. So you're going to want current. You're going to want some kind of rock or hard bottom, but there's a lot of gravel, and those transition bends are really good. Where you can go and it'd be like some bluff walls and some cut banks, and then they'll bend, and then they'll transition into pea gravel. Those usually are really good as long as they have current running through it, and it's usually really good. So one thing I will tell guys that come into this event is focus on the current. If you don't find any current, don't see any current, keep it moving, because you're going to be
just keep
wasting too
moving.
much time fishing
Okay,
dead water, and you're just going to be catching either a catfish or a big old northern pike on those stagnant waters. So current is going to be your friend. Don't be afraid of the current. The current is really going to, where it's going to hold a lot of the fish. So
okay,
like I said, you can catch them on anything. You can finesse fish. There are some deep holes on this river, when I say deep, I mean anywhere from 10 to 20 feet. So
Okay.
those can a certain time of the year. I don't know if in July it's going to be a big player yet. That's usually a fall thing for us up here. So you can try. I mean, I'm not going to say that there won't be any fish in there. That you might pick
Yeah.
up a big one in there, but for the most part, I like to tell people just go largemouth fishing. Just think of it as largemouth fishing, but with current. And if you
Okay.
think about it, and you target your cover or your structure the way you would target largemouth, then you typically will find your smallmouth in there. So
Okay. Cool.
um, there's going to be a lot of shallow water everywhere, but I've been fishing this river since 2019, so 6 years now, and what I've learned from fishing in the last 6 years is that don't overlook the shallow flats. Those are going to hold some of your biggest smallmouth out there, even if it's sunny. These river smallmouth, like, they love to sunbathe. So I mean, you'll have two school of fish, right? You have the one that likes to sunbathe, and the one that likes to sit in shade pockets and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But from what I found, the one that sits in sunbathe usually are your biggest smallmouth on the river.
Okay.
So I typically like to look for, some of the shallow, flat with either rocks or gravel, but a good amount of current running through it. And because, like I said, if I'm not finding any current, I'm not even going to stop and fish because you're
Gotcha.
not going to find any smallmouth. So the current, is going to be a friend. I'm pretty sure when we fish it, it's going to be sunny. Fish the shallow flat. I mean, for those type of area, I'd like to throw top water. That's gonna be, in my opinion, the best way to catch those big ones. So
Yeah. Okay.
top water, any kind of top water, you can throw whatever you want as long as I mean, a lot of guys throw a whopper plopper.
Yep.
I actually don't throw a whopper plopper at all. I throw buzz baits. So
Oh wow. Okay.
a lot of guys, a lot of local guys I know that I love throwing buzz bait on the river, and that's the only time I really throw is buzz bait is on the river. I hardly ever throw a buzz bait on the lake, So it's kind of one of my go to, but I haven't really thrown the buzz bait in the last couple of years. I just every year I try to try something new and then try
Yeah.
to get better with it, and because the first it started with the bladed jig. Well, first started in Mississippi was all finesse, right? All Ned rigs. I mean, Ned rigs only in, and fishing a Ned rig it can be very slow and boring on the river, but they do come in play. If you find like a little, deeper pool or something, you can actually catch all those fish with a little finesse, presentation. So the Ned
Right.
rig is going to come into play, especially if the water gets down. It's definitely going to come into play, but I try not to finesse fish too much on the river because I like to just cover water. And
Yeah.
I figure, what, the more casts I can do, the higher chance of me catching, five good ones. So that's the way I look at it. Some people will like
Yep.
to sit in the area and milk it, and that's fine. I mean, it works for other people. It just doesn't work for me. I mean, I, I've been burned by that,
Yeah.
especially on the river. You go pre-fish and then you'll catch like 10, 15 fish in one hole the week before, and then you show up and then they're all gone. So
Oh
it's like,
yeah.
well, where did these fish go? So I just, I tell people, like, hey, if you're stuck on the river, just cover water. I mean, worst that can happen is, you've gone too far and you just got to call for it. So, but that's been my deal, on the river.
Yeah, it was funny. We got to talking last week, and we'll let everybody know. I was like, "Hey, dude, have you teamed up with anybody yet?" Knowing that he had, because I had already asked who he's teaming up with. So it's good to see the Minnesota guys. They're going to hop on a team together too, because you kind of defend the home turf.
Yeah.
But then Elvis is like, "But you could fish with Ollie," and I was like, "Oh heck yeah, we'll put the young man with the old fart and get out there and throw chatterbaits. We can be team chatterbait for all I care."
Yeah, crazy. Speaking of that, I asked him, I was like, so what are you planning to throw for the Mississippi? He's like, oh, I'm just going to throw a bladed jig all day. I was like, are you sure you want to do that? Because so in Ohio, I didn't tell people this, but he actually, on day one, when he caught that 19 and a half, he actually dropped my spinning rod that he had with him in the water. And I was like, oh, I was a little frustrated, but I was like, it's an accident. It's not like he, intentionally did it. And I told him like, don't worry about it. We'll worry about this later. Just keep fishing, keep grinding. So, and then day two, I was like, you're only gonna have one rod to use for day two, so you got to make sure you don't drop this rod in the water. So he ended up just fishing one rod and one bait all day,
Yep.
and then I guess he's got so much confidence in that bait that for the event, he just won one rod and one bait. He didn't care about anything
Yep.
else. He just want to go catch him later jig. So I was like, okay, well, if that's what you want to do, then we'll just roll with it. Hopefully you don't break a. I mean, I've broken so many rods, especially when I fish river.
Yeah.
I like to go under overhanging trees, and sometimes I'll forget that. Oh, I got my rod sticking back there, and then well, there goes a tip.
Yep.
So I lately I've been trying to go as minimal as possible. Like I usually just carry. I don't carry a fishing crate. I carry a couple of plain old 3,700 boxes. So whatever fits inside of it, what I'm doing with me on the water. So
Yep.
I typically like to just 3 rods. I've done 5 rods, and I feel like 5 rods is just too much for me. So 3 rods is typically the most I like to, or what I'm comfortable with. I
Yeah.
can, the crazy thing is literally I'll just get away with one rod because I end up just throwing one thing all day anyway. So, but I just, knowing that I break so many rods during tournaments, I just like to bring extra just in case if something happens, I have a backup. So,
Yeah. I'm actually thinking I'll probably just leave my black pack off of the yak this time and just use my little side stagers. And
mhm.
like you, I've got so much where I fish what if I think I know what I'm doing, I don't even bring much of the 3700s. I just put all my stuff in a couple of the smaller Yak Attack track packs.
Yep,
I mean,
yep.
I've got Senkos, free or rage bugs, and then under that are like
Yep,
my jigs, my Ned rigs, and then I
yep,
might have like one plastic bag or speed bag full of like the
yep,
trailers, the worms, the Ned rig baits, stuff like that
yep.
too. But yeah, I plan on probably being very minimal while we're up there
Yeah,
because hey, it was fun to do that when we were up in Wisconsin, and it's just
yeah,
instinctive fishing. So that was the pretty
yeah.
cool thing about it. I'll probably leave one
I
graph
think,
on there just so I know how deep the water is, but other than that, I'm not going to
yeah,
bring all the rest of the stuff.
yeah. I don't even bring graph anymore. I just look at. I mean, the water today, certain section was kind of clear, some of it was kind of stained, but for the most part, you can kind of tell. Okay, this is going to be deep water. Usually, glasses tell. Okay, this is like less than a foot of water. Especially when you're going and you're banging your motor everywhere. So, um, but yeah, so I would try to go as minimalistic as possible. I mean,
Yeah,
I think especially, I mean, if people are planning to like power fish a lot and cover water, I think it's best to just go with a few rods. But for the
yeah,
guys that like to kind of sit in an area and milk it, you can, have as much tackle as you want, and I just don't know this time of year how they usually. I mean, for me, I don't really sit down and milk an area until the fall. That's usually when they school up. And on the Mississippi, when they school up, you can find them 10, 15, 20 fish in that 18 or 20-inch class size.
yeah.
When you find them, they're there. I know Scrivener, when we fished a couple years ago, when he won, he found fish. I ended up getting, and I caught like, I want to say over 20 fish, and 15 of them were in that 17 and 18, and then the rest of them were over 19 inches. I just
Oh
couldn't
wow. Okay.
get anything bigger than 20 inch to save my life, so I ended up sucking that one. And then last year we have it again. So every year, every fall, we have what we call it, the Bronzeback Classic on the Mississippi River. And last year when we did it, I feel like last year the fall bite when that I feel like the fall bite didn't happen until later in the season. So when we did that tournament in late September, it's always in late September, and I end up going to the spot that I fished previous before where I caught all that big school of fish. I end up catching only 2 fish. I mean, 20 and a quarter and a 17-inch fish, and I wasted too much time. And then I was like, man, I don't know if this fall bite is happening because I feel like it hasn't been cold enough at night, you know. So I end up just covering. I think that day I cover about 13 miles with a paddle because that event is human power only. So I paddle,
Okay, yeah.
you know. So and then the last 30 minutes, I came upon a little area where it was like a little washout area where there's a piece of wood and a bunch of washout, and then it kind of built out like a little mat right there. And I was like, man, that looks too good not to stop and fish it. So I threw my bladed jig right in there and I caught one right away, and I saw like a big old school trying to eat. Oh my god! I think I just found gold. So I stopped there, and at that point they eat the bladed jig, right? So I knew that a little finesse to catch them. So what I end up doing was I typically bring a Ned rig and the little finesse jig I showed you. It's basically a Ned rig but with a skirt tied on. So
Yep.
what I end up doing was I was like, okay, I'm gonna test which bait they want. So I cast upstream and let the current push that bait back to where those fish were set up. And every time I toss the net, switch to the little finesse jig, cast out. And every time I did that, I'll catch the 17 plus. I said, okay. I was like, is my mind really playing this? I kept doing it, testing for like a few minutes. And I was like, okay, they want this, finesse jig. The little
Yeah.
ones want the little net rig. So I end up just catching, I think I caught like 10, 15 fish in that one spot in the last 30 minutes. And I knew I lost some good fish that probably would have helped win, but that's fishing,
Oh yeah.
and that's going to happen on finesse, light lines and light wire hooks. So I was actually surprised that I end up in second again. So um,
Yeah,
I
I've got a tournament on Friday that I'm fishing. Of course, it's a bad, largemouth on the lake. And as soon as I get home from that, I'm going to be stripping braid and line off and getting ready for putting a little bit lighter stuff on.
yeah, I mean, I feel like river smallmouth. I don't think they really care too much. I mean,
Okay.
they're really. I mean, I'm throwing, on big bass, I'm throwing like 20-pound mono, and
Yeah.
that's that line stick. They don't care.
Right.
Even when I mean, a lot of the time we fish like our bladed jig, we fish straight braid.
Yep.
Straight braid on a moderate action tip. So even if I'm fishing, clear water, I still will throw a spinnerbait or bladed jig and straight braid. I don't care. I really don't think the fish really. I mean, because when they're zoned in,
Yeah.
they don't care what's in front of it. They just want that bait. So, I've caught fish doing that in like, where you have 10, 15 foot of visibility with straight braid
Yeah.
and just slow rolling a spinnerbait on these deep grass flats.
See, even when
So,
I'm on the rivers, if I'm throwing crankbaits or moving baits, I'll still use my fluorocarbon. But
mhm.
when I'm like finesse fishing, I try to go down to those lighter lines. I'll go with the braid to fluoro,
Yep,
just
yep,
those longer casts. Because if
yep.
I've learned anything, smallies love being around clear water,
Oh,
and
yeah.
if they see you before you see them, you ain't gonna catch them.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of that, this morning Tristan he wanted me to take him to go catch his first glide bait smallmouth fish, right? So I was like, okay, well, we got a bunch of stuff that's in the rod box. I was like, you sure you don't want to bring any conventional because I know you're gonna have a hard time. And he said, no, I just want one rod and one bait so I can stay focused. I was like, okay, all right, well, I'll just do the same thing too then. So I end up throwing a wake bait, and he threw a glide bait, and lots of follow. He didn't, unfortunately, he didn't catch a single smallmouth. He had a lot of follow, but he only caught pike. So
Yeah. Oh,
I
okay.
told him it's like there's kind of a key to fishing them for river smallmouth with glide bait. It's not. I feel like you're gonna have to be around current more to find these aggressive, bigger, large smallmouth that are willing to eat these glide baits. So
Yeah.
and I end up, lots of follow. We saw a bunch of a lot of followers today, some big ones. They wouldn't commit, but I caught a few good ones on today on the wake bait. I feel like if you're gonna fish something like that, you want to be around some of the current, some of the faster moving water,
Okay.
not super deep, but something that's kind of have some, something to break the current where they can kind of sit in there because there's one I'm gonna post up on my Instagram, one that I caught earlier today where I actually was falling back down, and I threw the wake bait, and I was just burning pause, and I saw it came out of this boulder, and then he tried to swipe at it, and it's like, man, what the heck? So I turned around and motor back up, made a cast over there, and he came out for it, and he actually swiped it, but for some reason it missed the hook, and I was slowly motoring out. I was like, I'm just gonna pull some line out and just let the bait sit there and let the current move work the bait, and within like 3 seconds, it came out of the boulder and just smashed it. So I was like, wow, this is a pretty cool bite. So I ended up catching that one, all this little cool spot. But yeah, anyways, it's just if guys want to throw big baits, go ahead and do it. It's you guys gonna have a fun time. These these smallmouth are not afraid of big baits. There are guys that throw 9-inch glide baits in the wintertime for these smallmouth, and they will eat it.
Oh wow, okay.
So it's pretty crazy. These smallmouth, they're very aggressive. Don't be afraid to throw bigger profile. Kind of test out what profile size they want, like the size of it and what color. I don't think color matters as much as profile size.
Okay.
Right now the crawfish are everywhere, so they're going to be eating a lot of craws. So crawfish imitation is going to be great.
Yeah, see if you can find one while you're there and kind of match the hatch kind of thing.
Yeah. Yep. Oliver found one, and I ended up having a friend of mine make some for us. So we're going to be throwing those as well. I don't know if I really want to finesse fish for these fish, at least not this time of year. But I know that those little finesse bait, those big smallmouth will eat them. So you just got to find the right one. So
yeah.
But for the most part, we're just going to power fish.
All right, man. I said I'd keep you for about an hour, and my Indiana Pacers are getting ready to play Game 7 against the Thunder. So,
all right, who you rooting for?
I'm rooting for the Pacers, man. I've been a lifelong Hoosier, so yeah, it's been a long time, and we've never won an NBA championship. So there's a long line of basketball legacy here in Indiana. So I don't watch a ton of the NBA, but I watch the Pacers in the playoffs.
Yeah,
and because for me, they're an actual team. They don't rely on one guy, and that's what I love about basketball is the total team, aspect of it too. So yep. So here's hoping we have a chance.
I mean, I was a big Wolves fan growing up, and then I and then Minnesota Vikings. Like, okay, disappoint. I knew that they were gonna disappoint. Be an upset. So I'm. I wasn't rooting for the Wolves. This season because they'd be good.
Have to just wait and see.
But yeah.
All right, sir. Well, I think your signal's starting to break up on us again, so I'm going to let you go. I thank you for joining us tonight and hopping in and sharing some of the juice for Minnesota, and looking forward to seeing you guys. I'm going to try to drive up there, I think, on Monday or Tuesday, so I can get as many days on the water as I can beforehand. But, yeah, we're going to call that a show for tonight. Thanks, everybody, for hopping in. I'm going to have some more guests coming up before we get to this big event. Hope everybody that's anywhere near driving distance can take some time off and come up, because this is going to be the event of the year, in my feelings, if you want to go out and catch some giant smallmouth bass. But we'll call that a show for the night. Thanks, everybody, for letting me keep you entertained. As always, get outside when you can and make some memories, just like Elvis and his sons do every time they get on the road to one of these Kayak Adventure Series events. But get outside. And my granddaughter Lila caught her first bluegill this weekend, so I had to take a little break and take the girls down to the creek and do a little fishing. So I've got to share a moment with Sky catching a bluegill and Lila catching a bluegill, and I got one daughter left, but I bet her mom beats me to the punch on that one. Who knows? But I had fun making memories with my grandbabes, and looking forward to making more with all you folks up in Minnesota. The Kayak Adventure Series Bronze Fest. Get outside when you can and make some memories, one cast at a time.